Cybersecurity is a very rewarding field, but lately it's been a struggle for many people being able to fill the number of entry-level positions that are across the world. But on the other hand, there are many aspiring analysts that have successfully transitioned into the field. And in this video, I hope to give you some tips that can help you make that transition as well. The journey begins with a solid understanding of core principles. Free or low-cost online courses on platforms like Udemy and YouTube are a fantastic starting point. Courses on those platforms will introduce you to networking fundamentals, security concepts, and even Linux basics, which are all essential building blocks for a cybersecurity career. I will link a great course on Udemy in the description box below. Use the internet is a treasure trove of cybersecurity knowledge. Reputable websites, blogs, and video series offer in-depth articles, tutorials, and practical guidance. Leverage these resources to delve deeper into specific areas that pique your interest, such as threat detection or incident response. Remember that the world of cybersecurity is vast, encompassing various specializations. From ethical hacking to security operations, there's something for everyone. Research different areas to discover what ignites your passion. Identifying your niche demonstrates focus and helps tailor your learning path. Here are some areas to look into: identity access management, vulnerability management, and security awareness training. While experience is highly valued, certifications serve as strong validation of your knowledge. Consider pursuing entry-level certifications like CompTIA Security Plus. Other certs such as AWS Cloud Practitioner and the ITIL certification can help keep your resume well-rounded. Getting hands-on experience before landing the job. Theoretical knowledge is valuable, but practical experience is essential. Here are some creative ways to gain hands-on skills. Set up a safe environment at home to experiment with security tools and software. I found that using the free tier in AWS and Microsoft Azure are great ways to build home labs. The wonderful thing about this is that you can screen record your actions within these platforms and explain the tasks you are completing in the videos. Take those screen recordings and post them to your LinkedIn profile to show employers that you are familiar with the platforms and concepts they are looking for. Gain experience using security tools from reputable sources such as VirusTotal, Proofpoint, and Sophos. I will provide links to all these tools in the description box as well. The cybersecurity community thrives on collaboration and support. Actively participate in online forums, attend webinars, and connect with professionals on LinkedIn. Networking not only broadens your knowledge base but can also open doors to new opportunities. Even without direct cybersecurity experience, transferable skills from previous roles can be valuable assets. For example, if you had a customer service role, you can highlight your problem-solving and communication skills. Demonstrating a well-rounded skill set strengthens your candidacy. Be prepared to discuss your self-directed learning journey and your eagerness to contribute. Highlight your chosen niche and showcase your problem-solving approach. Your passion and knowledge will shine through, making a lasting impression on the interviewer. Breaking into cybersecurity with no experience requires dedication and proactiveness, but it's absolutely achievable. By following these steps, demonstrating your passion, and continuously learning, you'll be well on your way to becoming a valuable asset in the ever-evolving world of cybersecurity. If you found this video helpful, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Also, share in the comments any tips you have that will help others transition into this field, or let us know what worked for you.
Recording. All right. Share my screen again. Sorry about that. I had set it for 1 hour and 30 and thinking that it was gonna go all the way to 12:30, but maybe I had the time zone wrong. So that's my bad. All right. So we went over the addition to the CIA, but now we want to go over continuing with the book, it started to show these diagrams here, and I thought these diagrams are pretty good, just because. And Kareem, you didn't really miss anything. You just really jumping right back on with the slides. So the data that we're going to protect, it will be this inner circle, and that's how I want you guys to think of it, right? So we got our CIA triad sitting here in the middle, but then the people that are working with that data, so you're talking, HR, to the cafeteria ladies, recreation majors, whoever is touching the data is going to be in this inner circle, right? But as security analysts, as security professionals, we need to understand the logical things that we need to put in place in order to protect our data, right? So this could be not just having software on our PCs or some type of a phone lock, or we're going to use biometrics in order to open up our phones. It could be, to put it into Moore's terms, we have the gate at the front, right? That could be the physical security that we have. We have a security guard out there, if I am mistaken. And, before you can even get to PCs or servers that's on Moore's campus, he should stop you and ask you what's your person reasoning for being there. And then if you just so happen to be lucky enough to get past your security guard, then we can have personnel security, or people that work in Moore's, right? That can say, hey, I don't recognize you, or you're not supposed to be here. You don't have an ID card. We can have those people on this outer ring here, even provide security. We can even implement things such as I'll give you a username and password, which, just happened to me on Monday, right? I didn't have a username and password. They treated me as an outsider. I can't get in. And that's the right way of doing things. But also you need to have an onboarding process. So it can get a little bit deeper than what I just explained, right? It can be a little bit deeper. It could be a little bit more intrusive to when it comes to vetting out who's supposed to be near your data or information and who's not, right? And we'll get into those type of things. And when I just said onboarding processes, that takes us to our procedures, right? That organizational security, having policies in place. When you guys got on Moore's, did you sign a acceptable use policy to use their network? That acceptable use policy, I saw Kareem head kind of go to the side, so maybe you didn't sign one. It says that it's supposed to say, hey, I'm not going to do anything illegal on your network, right? And by me saying that, I'm not telling you guys to do anything illegal on the network, because it's going to come back to Morris. But technically, nobody can do anything to you because you never signed anything saying that you shouldn't, right? So that organizational piece, those procedures, those policies, we need to have in place, making sure that anybody, because we never know, right, just by looking at someone, if they're going to hack us or not. So we need to make sure that we treat everybody the same and say, hey, no, hey, welcome to Morris, but hey, sign this acceptable use policy saying that you won't bring any type of malware, you won't download anything onto our network, not just your computer, but maybe you download a virus that now gets out into the dorm and it runs on that router for the dorm. And now you're affecting everybody in the dorm, or you're affecting everybody in the CAF. Okay, so we need to make sure that you have a high level policy that kind of oversees all of that, right? Now, going over into our second diagram here, we have a prime example of an asset and then a vulnerability. And so when I say a vulnerability, that means something that opens you up to an attack, right? I like to think of it in a bodily term. So a vulnerability for us could be COVID, right? COVID could harm you in a way to where you need a respirator or you need something to help you breathe, right? But the vulnerability is COVID, and you being yourself is the asset. You're the valuable one, right? But a vulnerability tends to open up some type of threat to the asset. Now, in this diagram over here, you'll see that the scooter is the asset. He paid, let's say he paid $1,200 for the scooter, and that's my asset. It gets me around town. Now, the the threat is my man here with the mask on, but the vulnerability just so happens to be the big old hole in the fence. And so we can, as security professionals, we want to make sure that we put things to mitigate that vulnerability. And how do we mitigate that simple vulnerability? Get a new fence, patch the fence up, right? Or let's say we lock the scooter up, or we take off the wheel of the scooter. And that's the same thing that we do in cybersecurity. We say, hey, this is everyone's social security number that goes to the TV company. Hey, how do we want to protect this? Because sometimes we can't stop the vulnerability, and we can't stop the threat agent. We can't stop this guy, my man here with the mask. We can't stop that, right? They're going to be there, but we can try to divert or mitigate the risk, and that goes into our next slide here, right? So our next slide is risk management. So that risk, in the book, it says it gives this equation, right? So whenever you have a vulnerability and a threat likelihood times that consequence, you're going to probably have a risk at hand, right? And that's a whole nother layer of cybersecurity. You have some people that are not just cybersecurity analysts, but they're risk management personnel. And the only thing they do is they look at the company and they see how they do business, and then how can they be attacked, or how can they have data leaks, and they just judge those things, and they get paid a lot of money to do that. All right, so take that into consideration when it comes to career choice. Now, how we deal with the risk is several different ways, but you're gonna 9 times out of 10 see this list right here again. So you can either avoid the risk, right? So if we go back to the case with my man with the scooter, we can avoid it by, hey, I'm not gonna buy a scooter, because you know why? It's a big old hole in the fence, right? We can avoid it that way. If you want to think about it in another way, if we get a lot of flooding in our area, we can say, hey, I'm not going to build a data center here because we get floods all the time. So I'm going to avoid the risk by not actually building here. Or we could say, hey, I'm going to accept the risk. I'm still going to buy the scooter. I don't care if it's a hole in the fence. It's something I needed. I gotta go to work, so I need it. No, I'm just gonna accept the risk, and if it happens, it happens. And you have businesses that does that all the time, right? We can mitigate the risk, and we already gave an example of that by putting a patch over the hole in the fence. That's called mitigation. We haven't completely written out the vulnerability, but we have made it a little bit tougher for the threat to get through, right? When we go back to COVID and that example, mitigation would be the COVID shots, right? We're mitigating the chance of, well, you still might get it, you might not get it as bad, right? Okay, so we also have deterrence, and that's to, let's say if we want to have our scooter with the hole in the fence, but yet over the hole in the fence, we're going to put beware of dog, or we say, hey, you're being watched on the camera by surveillance camera, right? And that's giving a deterrent message to that threat actor to say, maybe I don't want to steal the scooter because they're going to find me on video later, right? So that's deterrence. And then we have transference. Now, transference in this case of the scooter, we're going to say that's getting assurance, right? We're going to get assurance with Geico. And then if my scooter gets stolen, then I'll just file a claim and get the money and then buy another scooter. I'm transferring the risk from me onto the policy, onto the company that works with me. And that's transferring a risk. You'll be amazed of, people actually having insurance for data leakage. And actually, because, In some cases, when a company have a data leakage, they have to pay back those customers that actually do business with them. And then that can turn into millions of dollars that they probably have to come out of the pockets and pay those customers back. So you have a transference of the risk. I'm going to cash in on my policy. I get my policy money. I pay back my customers. Okay, so that's how you see some people like the credit union. They had a leakage of everyone's credit a couple of years ago, and everybody still kind of goes to Experian when it comes to credit checks. So just keep those things in mind. Now, going on with the book, we go into federal and state laws that are created in order to keep certain types of data safe. Now, when I say safe, that doesn't eliminate the threat or eliminate the vulnerability, but it does help you try to put you in a better situation in order to have that type of data around you. So hopefully you guys have heard of HIPAA when it comes to health laws. HIPAA is very wide known for whenever you go to a doctor or the campus nurse, and they have information about what type of medicine you take or what type of condition that you may have. It's illegal to share that just all willy-nilly, right? You need to actually go through processes in order to share that type of information. A good example is back when COVID just hit and the NFL still wanted to have games, they would they would they would say who got COVID, who tested for COVID, and who was positive, right? And that was a big HIPAA violation that I seen in the beginning. And then I'm assuming they got the right information to not let that out unless someone signs a waiver, right? You just can't, even if you have the flu and it's a very known common cold, you can't broadcast that for me. That's my medical condition, right? So the HIPAA laws are put in place in order to stop those type of things. When it comes to Sarbanes-Oxley here on the list, we're talking more of a corporate system. So any kind of corporate business is put in place to prevent fraud. All right. Graham, Leach, and Briley is going to be in place for banks and financial institutions. So we want to make sure that everyone is not getting your information when it comes to routing numbers or accounting numbers, how many checking accounts you have. So we put those things in place for that. A more popular one is the PCI DSS, which is the Payment Card Industry and Data Security Standard. And that's for any company needing to have debit cards in order to operate. So even if it's a snow cone shop that allows you to swipe your card in order to buy the snow cone, it needs to apply by the PCI DSS standards. Okay. So I'm gonna try to hurry up. I got 3 minutes left until 12, and then I want to go over some questions with you guys. So what type of attackers do we have? So we have the traditional type of cyber criminals, hackers, and attackers. These are more your seasoned vets that actually are looking for some type of vulnerable state in your system or processes for that company. Maybe they have a grudge against them, right? But that goes more into the insider threat. So let's go into script kiddies next. Script kiddies are beginners, right? I don't necessarily know how to code, or I don't know how to hack into a router, but I know how to YouTube. And if I YouTube the right thing, or if I Google the right thing, I can find me a malicious software that'll do whatever I want it to do. If I wanted to cause a big disruption at Moore's, I can download it from Google and just double click it and on the campus and walk away. And then it'll go out and prevent any kind of network communications throughout the campus. That's more a script kiddie, someone who's just looking for something already built and they're going to apply that. Hacktivists, on the other hand, are more seasoned vets who are hacking for a reason. And when I say hacktivists, I want you guys to think about, I think it was 2016 election, where you had a lot of people. You had the Trump and the Clinton situation, and you had hacktivists working between the two in order to sway votes or to lose votes, right? So they're hacking for a reason. Now, you also kind of jumping over insider threats, you kind of link hacktivists and state sponsor attackers together because they have, sometimes a state sponsor attacker could be hired by the government in order to hack another country. All right. Now, don't think of the U.S. doing this, which I'm pretty sure the U.S. probably does it. But when you think about countries like Korea or Russia or some countries in Africa, they may have some type of government-backed hacking team to send attacks over to their enemies or to whatever businesses that may not be cooperating with them. Think of how we cut off Russia when it comes to the gas. When it comes to natural gas, then why not, if I'm Russia, get a team together and say, hey, I want you to attack Microsoft. I want you to attack Apple and make sure that we try to disrupt them on their business side. So those are state sponsored, right? Now, going back to insider threats could be me or you when it comes to I'm in the company, I'm in the business, I'm in the school. I know the ins and outs of it. They teed me off. I'm gonna go ahead and hack their system real quick. All right. That's they already gave me a username and password, so I don't have to hack into someone's password. I already have permissions to be on the network. Right. That goes back into why I need to have that acceptable use policy in play, because you never know. They may deny you, Morris may deny you something, and then now you're teed off at Morris and you're going to take it out on the school. And there's nothing to stop you right now in the place. So, but again, we're going to not do that as we learn different things in this class. All right. So, real quick, the book went over the steps of an attack. So a lot of hackers, they'll probably go around this using these steps. I wouldn't say they go in this order, but they're in the ballpark, right? So we're going to do some recon. How is the business laid out? How is information going in? How is it going out? Are they just taking orders from another company? Are they taking orders from customers? Is that the only information coming in? We're just going to do homework, reconnaissance. Then we're going to weaponize some type of attack. What do we want our attack to be? Do we want it to be a logic bomb? Do we want it to be some type of ransomware? How do we want to attack this company, right? And then we want to go about, well, not we, but the attacker wants to go about how to deliver. And I needed to space that out. But how to deliver the attack? How are we going to put the attack into the business? Are we going to send it through an email? Are we going to put it on a thumb drive and leave the thumb drive in a bathroom stall somewhere on campus, and then hoping someone will be curious enough to plug it in? Okay. Then once we are able to deliver, we can exploit. Now it's putting into place. It's locking down things. It's creating havoc. It's stopping any type of network communication from going on. That normally goes into installation as well. Maybe I don't want my attack to happen now. I want to have a logic bomb to where it goes off on Labor Day when no one's there, right? And then, or in the case of the control and command, maybe I wanted to install silently and make no changes, but look at the information on the back end and how does it come to my computer? Am I just pulling social security numbers from it? Am I pulling account numbers, routing numbers? Am I pulling bank statements? So how is it going to work with whatever I'm doing? Is it going to work from a main server and it's going to be a bot just pulling in information, or is it just going to automatically shut down everything? Okay. And then that goes into, the actions on the objectives. How are we going to use what we got, right? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to just sit there and just collect the information? Are we just going to do one small feature every day? When I say that, I mean in the banking field, we had one guy just transfer a penny from everyone's account into his account every day. That's all he did. But if we're talking millions of accounts, if he just transferred one penny, it may seem small, but in the end, he walks away with a lot of money. So finally, how do we put defenses in? How do we actually defend against these attacks? We can have a layered defense, how I showed with the earlier slide here. This is called a layered defense. We're putting different types of protection in. We can limit it, the time that someone is on our campus, someone that's on our network. We can put automatic log out times. If you're staying logged into an application for a certain amount of time, then it automatically logs you out, right? We can have that. We can have some type of diversity when it comes to software. Not having everything to be Apple is not necessarily a great thing. If you guys haven't heard, Apple pushed out an update a couple of days ago that's subject to having remote control access to the hackers. So if you guys have an iPhone or iPad, I suggest that you go ahead and look at that update that they pushed out. I think it was 15.5 or 4 or something like that, and go ahead and apply that. So having different types of diversity when it comes to software is a good thing. That way you're not setting yourself up for one failure of a software. Obscurity. Obscurity means putting in hiding data in front of you, right? So whenever you plug in your password, it doesn't show you the password, it shows you the little dots or the asterisks. And that's called obscurity. The password is there, it's hiding it from anyone who may be eavesdropping on you, or someone who may be sharing a screen like me, right? And the only thing you're just seeing is just the dots. And then simplicity. Don't overdo it. Don't try to be, a security guru your first day, or just try to make sure that we have our layers in place, and then we don't try to overthink what we're trying to do, right? So that's the gist of chapter 1. I would suggest let me stop the recording. I would suggest for you guys to...
The cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving, and the need for skilled professionals has never been greater. Schools offering cybersecurity degrees have a vital role to play in equipping the next generation to combat cyber threats. But how can these programs stay ahead of the curve and ensure graduates are truly prepared? Here are 12 strategies to strengthen your school's cybersecurity degree program. 1. Establish advisory boards comprised of cybersecurity professionals to keep the curriculum relevant to industry needs and emerging threats. 2. Invite industry experts to share real-world experiences and insights with students. 3. Partner with companies to offer internship programs, providing students with hands-on experience. 4. Balance theoretical foundations with practical application through case studies, simulations, and project-based learning. 5. Offer specialized tracks within the program, such as ethical hacking, network security, or digital forensics. 6. Integrate the latest cybersecurity tools and technologies into the curriculum, ensuring students are familiar with practical applications. 7. Encourage faculty and students to participate in cybersecurity research, fostering a spirit of innovation in the program. 8. Organize Capture the Flag competitions where students can test their skills in a safe, competitive environment. 9. Host hackathons and workshops to expose students to new technologies and real-world challenges. 10. Incorporate courses on communication, ethics, and critical thinking to equip graduates to deal with the human aspects of cybersecurity. 11. Emphasize the importance of continuous learning in the rapidly evolving cybersecurity field. 12. Offer career guidance and resources to help students navigate the job market and find rewarding careers. By implementing these strategies, schools can strengthen their cybersecurity degree programs, graduate job-ready professionals, and play a crucial role in safeguarding the digital future.
The Protect Cybersecurity function aims to build secure IT processing systems that exhibit the attributes of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Many of these systems depend wholly or in part on cryptography. As an information security professional, you must understand the concepts underpinning cryptographic algorithms and their implementation in secure protocols and services. A strong technical understanding of the subject will enable you to explain the importance of cryptographic systems and to select appropriate technologies to meet a given security goal. In this lesson, you will do the following: compare and contrast cryptographic algorithms. Explain the importance of public key infrastructure and digital certificates. Explain the importance of using appropriate cryptographic solutions for encryption and key. Cryptography, which literally means secret writing, is the art of making information secure by encoding it. This is the opposite of security through obscurity. Security through obscurity means keeping something a secret by hiding it. This is considered impossible on a computer system. With cryptography, it does not matter if third parties know of the existence and location of the secret, because they can never understand what it is without the means to decode it. The following terminology is used to discuss cryptography. Plaintext is an unencrypted message. Ciphertext is an encrypted message. Algorithm is the process used to encrypt and decrypt a message. Cryptanalysis is the art of cracking cryptographic systems. In discussing cryptography and attacks against encryption systems, it is customary to use a cast of characters to describe different actors involved in the process of an attack. The main characters are as follows: Alice, the sender of a genuine message; Bob, the intended recipient of the message; Mallory, a malicious attacker attempting to subvert the message in some way. There are three main types of cryptographic algorithms with different roles to play in the assurance of the security properties confidentiality, integrity, availability, and non-repudiation. These types are hashing algorithms and two types of encryption ciphers, symmetric and asymmetric. An encryption algorithm or cipher is a type of cryptographic process that encodes data so that it can be stored or transmitted securely and then decrypted only by its owner or its intended recipient. Using a key with the encryption cipher ensures that decryption can only be performed by an authorized person. To understand how an algorithm works, it is helpful to consider simple substitution and transposition algorithms. A substitution cipher involves replacing characters or blocks in the plaintext with different ciphertext. Simple substitution ciphers rotate or scramble letters of the alphabet. Symmetric encryption cannot be used for authentication or integrity. Alice and Bob are able to create exactly the same secrets because they both know the same key. Alice and Bob meet to agree which cipher to use and a secret key value. They both record the value of the secret key, making sure that no one else can discover it. Alice encrypts a file using the cipher and key. Alice sends only the ciphertext to Bob over the network. Bob receives the ciphertext and is able to decrypt it by applying the same cipher with his copy of the secret key. Symmetric encryption is very fast. It is used for bulk encryption of large amounts of data. The main problem is how Alice and Bob meet to agree upon or exchange the key. If Mallory intercepts the key and obtains the ciphertext, the security is broken. Encryption algorithms use a key to increase the security of the process. The key is important because it means that even if the cipher method is known, a message still cannot be decrypted without knowledge of the specific key. Modern ciphers use large key spaces where there are trillions of possible key values. This makes the key difficult to discover via brute force cryptanalysis. Brute force cryptanalysis means attempting decryption of the ciphertext with every possible key value and reading the result to determine if it is still gibberish or plaintext. Keys for modern symmetric ciphers use a pseudo-randomly generated number of bits. The number of bits is the key length. For example, the most commonly used symmetric cipher is the Advanced Encryption Standard. This can be used with two key lengths. AES-128 uses a 128-bit key length. A bit can have one of two values, 0 or 1, so the number of possible key values is 2 multiplied by itself a number of times equivalent to the key length. This is written as 228, where 2 is the base and 128 is the exponent. AES-256 has a key space of 256. This key space is not twice as large as AES-128. It is many trillions of times bigger and consequently significantly more resistant to brute force attacks. The drawback of using larger keys is that the computer must use more memory and processor cycles to perform encryption and decryption. In a symmetric encryption cipher, the same secret key is used to perform both encryption and decryption operations. With an asymmetric algorithm, encryption and decryption are performed by two different but related public and private keys and a key pair. When a public key is used to encrypt a message, only the paired private key can decrypt the ciphertext. The public key cannot be used to decrypt the ciphertext. The keys are generated in a way that it makes it impossible to derive the private key from the public key. This means that the key pair owner can distribute the public key to anyone they want to receive secure messages from. Bob generates a key pair and keeps the private key secret. Bob publishes the public key. Alice wants to send Bob a confidential message, so they take a copy of Bob's public key. Alice uses Bob's public key to encrypt the message. Alice sends the ciphertext to Bob. Bob receives the message and is able to decrypt it using their private key. If Mallory has been snooping, they can intercept both the message and the public key. However, Mallory cannot use the public key to decrypt the message, so the system remains secure. The drawback of asymmetric encryption is that it involves substantial computing overhead compared to symmetric encryption. Where a large amount of data is being encrypted on disk or transported over a network, asymmetric encryption is inefficient. Rather than being used to encrypt the bulk data directly, the public key cipher can be used to encrypt a symmetric secret key. This allows Alice and Bob to exchange a bulk encryption session key without Mallory being able to learn it. Asymmetric encryption can be implemented using a number of algorithms. Each algorithm has a different recommended key length. Here are some facts to remember on the exam. The Rivest-Shamir Adelman asymmetric cipher requires a 2048-bit private key to achieve an acceptable level of security. The elliptic curve cryptography asymmetric cipher can use 256-bit private keys to achieve a level of security equivalent to a 3072-bit RSA key. A cryptographic hashing algorithm produces a fixed-length string of bits from an input plaintext that can be of any length. The output can be referred to as a hash or as a message digest. The function is designed so that it is impossible to recover the plaintext data from the digest and so that different inputs are unlikely to produce the same output. There are two popular implementations of hash algorithms. Secure hash algorithm, considered the strongest algorithm. There are variants that produce different-sized outputs, with longer digests considered more secure. The most popular variant is SHA-256, which produces a 256-bit digest. Message digest algorithm number 5 produces a 128-bit digest. MD5 is not considered to be quite as safe for use as SHA-256, but it might be required for compatibility between security products. A single hash function, symmetric cipher, or asymmetric cipher is called a cryptographic primitive. A complete cryptographic system or product is likely to use multiple cryptographic primitives within a cipher suite. The properties of different symmetric asymmetric hash types and of specific ciphers for each type impose limitations on their use in different contexts and for different purposes. Encryption can be used to ensure confidentiality. Cryptographic ciphers can also be used for integrity and authentication. If you can encode a message in a way that no one else can replicate, then the recipient of the message knows with whom they are communicating. Public key cryptography can authenticate a sender because they control a private key that produces messages in a way that no one else can. Hashing proves integrity by computing a unique fixed-size message digest from any variable length input. These two cryptographic ciphers can be combined to make a digital signature. This is how this diagram works within this slide. The sender, Alice, creates a digest of a message using a pre-agreed hash algorithm, such as SHA-256, and then performs a signing operation on the digest using her chosen asymmetric cipher and private key. Alice attaches the digital signature to the message and sends both the signature and the message to Bob. Bob verifies the signature using Alice's public key, obtaining the original hash. Bob then calculates his own digest for the document and compares it with Alice's hash. If the two digests are the same, then the data has not been tampered with during transmission, and Alice's identity is guaranteed. If either the data had changed or a malicious user had intercepted the message and used a different private key to sign it, the hashes would not match. Public key cryptography solves the problem of distributing encryption keys when you want to communicate securely with others or authenticate a message that you send to others. When you want others to send you confidential messages, you give them your public key to use to encrypt the message. The message can then only be decrypted by your private key, which you keep known only to yourself. When you want to authenticate yourself to others, you sign a hash of your message with your private key. You give others your public key to use to verify the signature. As only you know the private key, everyone can be assured that only you could have created the signature. The basic problem with public key cryptography is that while the owner of a private key can authenticate messages, there is no mechanism for establishing the owner's identity. This problem is particularly evident with e-commerce. How can you be sure that a shopping site or banking service is really maintained by whom it claims? The fact that the site is distributing a public key to secure communications is no guarantee of actual identity. How do you know that you are corresponding directly with the site using its genuine public key? How can you be sure there isn't a threat actor with network access intercepting and modifying what you think the legitimate server is sending you? Public key infrastructure aims to prove that the owners of public keys are who they say they are. Under PKI, anyone issuing a public key should publish it in a digital certificate. The certificate's validity is guaranteed by a certificate authority. PKI can use private or third-party CAs. A private CA can be set up within an organization for internal communications. The certificates it issues will only be trusted within the organization. For public or business-to-business communications, a third-party CA can be used to establish a trust relationship between servers and clients. Examples of third-party CAs include Komodo, DigiCert, GeoTrust, IdenTrust, and Let's Encrypt. A digital certificate is essentially a wrapper for a subject's public key. As well as the public key, it contains information about the subject and the certificate's issuer. The certificate is digitally signed to prove that it was issued to the subject by a particular CA. The subject could be a human user allowing certificates for the signing of messages, or a computer server for a web server hosting confidential transactions. The root of trust model defines how users and different CAs can trust one another. Each CA issues itself a certificate. This is referred to as the root certificate. The root certificate is self-signed, meaning the CA server signs a certificate issued to itself. A root certificate uses an RSA key size of 2048 or 4096 bits, or the ECC equivalent. The subject of the root certificate is set to the organization CA name, such as CompTIA root CA. The root certificate can be used to sign other certificates issued by the CA. Installing the CA's root certificate means that hosts will automatically trust any certificates signed by that CA. In this simple model, a single root CA issues certificates directly to users and computers. This single CA model is often used on private networks. The problem with this approach is that the single CA server is very exposed. If it is compromised, the whole PKI collapses. Most third-party CAs operate a hierarchical model. In the hierarchical model, the root CA issues certificates to one or more intermediate CAs. The intermediate CAs issue certificates to subjects. This model has the advantage that different intermediate CAs can be set up with certificate policies enabling users to perceive clearly what a particular certificate is designed for. Each leaf certificate can be traced to the root CA along the certification path. This is also referred to as certificate chaining or a chain of trust. In some circumstances, using PKI can be too difficult or expensive to manage. Any machine, web server, or program code can be deployed with a self-signed certificate. For example, the web administrative interfaces of consumer routers are often only protected by a self-signed certificate. Self-signed certificates can also be useful in development and test environments. The operating system or browser will mark self-signed certificates as untrusted, but a user can choose to override this. The nature of self-signed certificates makes them very difficult to validate. They should not be used to protect critical hosts and applications. Registration is the process by which end users create an account with the CA and become authorized to request certificates. The exact processes by which users are authorized and their identity proven are determined by the CA implementation. For example, in a Windows domain network, users and devices can often auto-enroll with the CA just by authenticating to Active Directory. A third-party CA might perform a range of tests to ensure that a subject is who they claim to be. It is in the CA's interest to ensure that it only issues certificates to legitimate users, or its reputation will suffer. When a subject wants to obtain a certificate, it first generates a key pair comprising private and public asymmetric keys for the chosen cipher, such as RSA or ECC, and key length. The private key must be kept well protected and known only to the subject. The subject then completes a certificate signing request and submits it to the CA. The CSR is a file containing the information that the subject wants to use in the certificate, including its public key. The CA reviews the certificate and checks that the information is valid. For a web server, this may simply mean verifying that the subject name and fully qualified domain name are identical, and verifying that the CSR was initiated by the person administratively responsible for the domain, as identified in the domain's WHOIS records. If the request is accepted, the CA signs the certificate and sends it to the subject. Key management refers to operational considerations for the various stages in a key's lifecycle. A key's lifecycle may involve the following stages. Key generation creates an asymmetric key pair or symmetric secret key of the required strength, using the chosen cipher. Storage prevents unauthorized access to a private or secret key and protecting against loss or damage. Revocation prevents use of the key if it is compromised. If a key is revoked, any data that was encrypted using it should be re-encrypted using a new key. Expiration and renewal gives the certificate a shelf life, increasing security. Every certificate expires after a certain period. Certificates can be renewed with the same key pair or with a new key pair. A decentralized key management model means that keys are generated and managed directly on the computer or user account that will use the certificate. This does not require any special setup and so is easy to deploy. It makes the detection of key compromise more difficult, however. Some organizations prefer to centralize key generation and storage using a tool such as a key management system. In one type of cryptographic key management system, a dedicated server or appliance is used to generate and store keys. When a device or app needs to perform the key managed community, a key pair or secret key can be generated, stored in the file system on a desktop or general purpose OS. This has a number of keys needs to be generated using a random process. A key generation system with a high degree of disorder or entropy ensures that any value from the possible key space has the same chance of being selected as any other. Unfortunately, computer hardware and software is extremely low entropy. Computers process instructions in an entirely deterministic way. A computer can use pseudo-RNG software that is still deterministic, but able to approximate a high level of disorder. Better security is obtained by true random number generator hardware. This uses a source of entropy, such as noise or air movement, as a non-deterministic seed for generating the key value. A key stored in the file system is only as secure as any other file. It could easily be compromised via the user credential or physical theft of the device. It is also difficult to ensure that key access is fully audited. Ideally, cryptographic storage is tamper-evident. This means that it is known immediately when a private or secret key has been compromised, and it can be revoked and any ciphertexts re-encrypted with a new key. These drawbacks can be addressed by using a cryptoprocessor for key generation and storage. Because it is dedicated to a single function, the cryptoprocessor hardware has a smaller attack surface than a general-purpose computer. A cryptoprocessor can also perform operations such as decryption and signing on behalf of apps. This means that the key material never leaves the cryptoprocessor. There are two main ways of implementing cryptoprocessor hardware: TPMs and HSMs. A trusted platform module is a cryptoprocessor implemented as a module for a discrete computer platform, such as a desktop computer, mobile device, or embedded system. A hardware security module is cryptoprocessor hardware implemented in a removable or dedicated form factor, including rack-mounted appliances, plug-in PCIe adapter cards, and USB-connected security keys. If a private or secret key is lost or damaged, ciphertexts cannot be recovered unless a backup of the key has been made. Making copies of the key is problematic as it becomes more likely that a copy will be compromised and more difficult to detect that a compromise has occurred. These issues can be mitigated by using escrow and M of N controls. Escrow means that something is held independently. In terms of key management, this refers to archiving a key with a third party. M of N means that an operation cannot be performed by a single individual. Instead, a quorum of available persons must agree to authorize the operation. A key can be split into parts. Each part can be held by separate escrow providers, reducing the risk of compromise. An account with permission to access a key held in escrow is referred to as a key recovery agent. A recovery policy can require 2 or more KRAs to authorize the operation. This mitigates the risk of a KRA attempting to impersonate the key owner. If data is encrypted, it does not matter if the disk storing the information is stolen or if it can be intercepted when it is transferred over a network, because the threat actor will not be able to understand or change what has been stolen. This use of encryption fulfills the goal of confidentiality. When deploying a cryptographic system to protect data assets, consideration must be given to all the ways that information could potentially be intercepted. Data can be described as being in one of 3 states. Data at rest is the state when the data is in some sort of persistent storage media. Data in transit is the state when data is transmitted over a network. Data in use is the state when data is present in volatile memory, such as system RAM or CPU registers and cache. Encrypting megabytes or gigabytes of data is referred to as bulk encryption. Asymmetric encryption and private-public key pairs are not often used for bulk encryption because an asymmetric algorithm cannot process large amounts of data efficiently. The computational overhead is too high when using this type of algorithm to encrypt the contents of a disk or series of network packets. Therefore, bulk data encryption uses a symmetric cipher, such as AES. A symmetric cipher can encrypt and decrypt data files and streams of network traffic quickly. The problem is that distributing a symmetric key is challenging. The more people who know the key value, the weaker the confidentiality property is. Luckily, symmetric keys are only 128 bits or 256 bits long, and so can easily be encrypted using a public key. Transport communication encryption protects data in motion. Various transport encryption products have been developed for different networking solutions. Some examples include the following: Wi-Fi protected access, securing traffic sent over a wireless network. Internet protocol security, securing traffic sent between 2 endpoints over a public or untrusted transport network. This is referred to as virtual private networking. Transport layer security, securing application data, such as web or email data, sent over a public or untrusted network. The values used for a private key or secret key must be selected at random. If there is something predictable about the way the value of the key was derived, it has less entropy. Low entropy is a particular concern whenever a cryptographic system makes use of user-generated data, such as a password. Users tend to select low-entropy passwords because they are easier to remember. This type of data is too short and too ordered to be a good seed for key generation. Salting and key stretching help to protect password-derived cryptographic secrets from discovery through cryptanalysis. Cryptographic hash functions are often used for password storage and transmission. A hash cannot be decrypted back to the plaintext password that generated it. Hash functions are one way. However, passwords stored as hashes are vulnerable to brute force and dictionary attacks. A threat actor can generate hashes to try to find a match for a hash captured from network traffic or a password file. A brute force attack simply runs through every possible combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. A dictionary attack creates hashes of common words and phrases. Both these attacks can be slowed down by adding a salt value when creating the hash. A unique, random salt value should be generated for each user account. This mitigates the risk that if users choose identical plaintext passwords, there would be identical hash values in the password file. The salt is not kept secret because any system verifying the hash must know the value of the salt. It simply means that an attacker cannot use pre-computed tables of hashes. The hash values must be recompiled with the specific salt value for each password. Key stretching takes a key that's generated from a user password plus a random salt value and repeatedly converts it to a longer and more disordered key. The initial key may be put through thousands of rounds of hashing. This might not be difficult for the attacker to replicate, so it doesn't actually make the key stronger. It does slow the attack down because the attacker has to do all this extra processing for each possible key value. Key stretching can be performed by using a particular software library to hash and save passwords when they are created. The password-based key derivation function, too, is very widely used for this purpose, notably as part of Wi-Fi protected access. Blockchain is a concept in which an expanding list of transactional records is secured using cryptography. Each record is referred to as a block and is run through a hash function. The hash value of the previous block in the chain is added to the hash calculation of the next block in the chain. This ensures that each successive block is cryptographically linked. Each block validates the hash of the previous block all the way through to the beginning of the chain, ensuring that each historical transaction has not been tampered with. In addition, each block typically includes a timestamp of one or more transactions as well as the data involved in the transactions themselves. The blockchain is recorded in an open public ledger. This ledger does not exist as an individual file on a single computer. Rather, one of the most important characteristics of a blockchain is that it is decentralized. The ledger is distributed across a peer-to-peer network in order to mitigate the risks associated with having a single point of failure or compromise. Blockchain users can therefore trust each other equally. Likewise, another defining quality of a blockchain is its openness. Everyone has the same ability to view every transaction on a blockchain. Blockchain technology has a variety of potential applications. It can ensure the integrity and transparency of financial transactions, legal contracts, copyright and intellectual property protection, online voting systems, identity management systems, and data storage. Obfuscation is the art of making a message or data difficult to find. It is security by obscurity, which is normally deprecated. There are some uses for obfuscation technologies. However, steganography embeds information within an unexpected source, a message hidden in a picture, for instance. The container document or file is called the cover text. The message can be encrypted by some mechanism before embedding it, providing confidentiality. The technology can also provide integrity or non-repudiation. For example, it could show that something was printed on a particular device at a particular time, which could demonstrate that it was genuine or fake, depending on the context. Tokenization means that all or part of the value of a database field is replaced with a randomly generated token. The token is stored with the original value on a token server or token vault, separate from the production database. An authorized query or app can retrieve the original value from the vault, if necessary, so tokenization is reversible. Tokenization is used as a substitute for encryption because, from a regulatory perspective, an encrypted field is the same value as the original data. Data masking and tokenization are used for de-identification. De-identification obfuscates personal data from databases so that it can be shared without compromising privacy. Each network user and host device must be identified with an account so that you can control their access to your organization's applications, data, and services. The processes that support this requirement are referred to as identity and access management. Within IAM, authentication technologies ensure that only valid subjects can operate an account. Authentication requires the account holder to submit credentials that should only be known or held by them in order to access the account. There are many authentication technologies, and it is imperative that you be able to implement and maintain these security controls, as well as ensuring that only valid users and devices connect to managed networks and devices. You must ensure that these subjects are authorized with only the necessary permissions and privileges to access and change resources. These tasks are complicated by the need to manage identities across on-premises networks, cloud services, and web and mobile apps. In this lesson, you will do the following: implement password-based and multi-factor authentication. Implement account policies and authorization solutions. Implement single sign-on and federated identity solutions. Authentication is performed when a supplicant or claimant presents credentials to an authentication server. The server compares what was presented to the copy of the credentials it has stored. If they match, the account is authenticated. Authentication design refers to selecting a technology that meets requirements for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality, in terms of authentication, is critical, because if account credentials are leaked, threat actors can impersonate the account holder and act on the system with whatever rights they have. Integrity means that the authentication mechanism is reliable and not easy for threat actors to bypass or trick with counterfeit credentials. Availability means that the time taken to authenticate does not impede workflows and is easy enough for users to operate. There are many different technologies for defining credentials. These can be categorized as factors. The longest standing authentication factor is something you know or a knowledge factor. The typical knowledge factor is the login, composed of a username and a password. The username is typically not a secret, but the password must be known only to the account holder. A passphrase is a longer password composed of several words. This has the advantages of being more secure and easier to remember. A personal identification number is also something you know. Originally, PINs were associated with short 4- or 6-digit numeric sequences used with bank cards. In modern authentication designs, the main characteristic of a PIN is that it is valid for authenticating to a single device only. This type of PIN can use any characters and length. Users often adopt poor credential management practices that are hard to control, such as using the same password for corporate networks and consumer websites. This makes enterprise network security vulnerable to data breaches from these websites. This risk is mitigated by a password manager. The user selects a password manager app or service. Most operating systems and browsers implement password managers. Examples include Windows Credential Manager and Apple's iCloud Keychain. If using a third-party password manager, the user installs a plugin for their chosen browser. The user secures the password vault with a master password. The vault is likely to be stored in the cloud so that accounts can be accessed across multiple devices, but some password managers offer local storage only. When the user creates or updates an account, the password manager generates a random password. The parameters can be adjusted to meet whatever length and complexity policy is required by the site. The main risks from password managers are selection of a weak master password, compromise of the vendor's cloud storage or systems, and impersonation attacks designed to trick the manager into filling a password to a spoofed site. An authentication design that uses only passwords or a single knowledge factor is considered weak. Password secrets are too prone to compromise to be reliable. Other types of authentication factor can be used to supplement or replace password-based logins. A multi-factor authentication technology combines the use of more than one type of factor. Something you have is an ownership factor. It means that the account holder possesses something that no one else does, such as a smart card, key fob, or smartphone that can generate or receive a cryptographic token. Something you are refers to a biometric or inherence factor. A biometric factor uses either physiological identifiers, such as a fingerprint or facial scan, or behavioral identifiers, such as the way someone moves. The identifiers are scanned and recorded as a template. When the user authenticates, another scan is taken and compared to the template. Somewhere you are means the system applies a location-based factor to an authentication decision. Location-based authentication measures some statistics about where you are. This could be a geographic location measured using a device's location service or its Internet Protocol network address. A device's IP address could be used to refer to a logical network segment, or it could be linked to a geographic location using a geolocation service. Within a premises network, the physical port location, virtual LAN, or Wi-Fi network can also be made the basis of location-based authentication. Biometric authentication can be challenging to implement. The efficacy rate of biometric pattern acquisition and matching and suitability as an authentication mechanism can be evaluated using the following metrics and factors. False rejection rate is where a legitimate user is not recognized. This is also referred to as a type 1 error or false non-match rate. FRR is measured as a percentage. False acceptance rate is where an interloper is accepted. FAR is measured as a percentage. False rejection causes inconvenience to users, but false acceptance can lead to security breaches, and so is usually considered the most important metric. An ownership factor means that the user possesses some type of device that only they can operate. This is referred to as an authenticator. The authenticator is able to generate or receive a token that identifies and authenticates the user. There are three main types of token generation. Certificate-based authentication is when the supplicant controls a private key that can generate a unique signed token. The identity provider can verify the signature via the public key. The main drawback of this approach is the administrative burden of implementing PKI to issue digital certificates. One-time password is when a token is generated using some sort of hash function on a shared secret value plus a synchronization seed, such as a timestamp. The token can only be used once. A new token is generated for each authentication decision. This approach still uses a key pair and hashing for security, but it does not require PKI. Fast Identity Online Universal Second Factor uses a public-private key pair to register each account, avoiding the need to communicate a shared secret, which is a weakness of HOTP and TOTP. The private key is locked to the U2F device and signs the token. The public key is registered with the authentication server and verifies the token. As no digital certificates are involved, the solution does not rely on PKI. A hard authentication token is generated within a secure crypto processor. The authentication design means that there is no transmission of the token itself. Several device-based authenticators can be used to implement hard tokens. Smart cards implement certificate-based authentication. The smart card stores the user's digital certificate, the private key associated with the certificate, and a personal identification number used to activate the card. The card must be presented to a reader. There are physical contact and contactless near-field communication card types. One-time password refers to a crypto processor that can generate a token. This type of hardware token does not need an interface to connect with a computer. The user just reads the code displayed. Security key refers to a portable hardware security module with a computer interface, such as USB or NFC. A security key must be activated to show presence. Some keys just have an activation button, but most use a biometric fingerprint reader for better security. A PIN must also be configured as a backup mechanism. A soft authentication token is a one-time password generated by the identity provider and transmitted to the supplicant. The OTP could be sent to a registered phone number as in text message or sent to an email account. This method is more likely to use counter-based tokens, though they will still have an expiry period. Soft tokens sent via SMS or email do not really count as an ownership factor. These systems can be described as two-step verification rather than MFA. The tokens are highly vulnerable to interception. A more secure soft OTP token can be generated using an authenticator app. This is software installed on a computer or smartphone. The user must register each identity provider with the app, typically using a scannable quick response code to communicate the shared secret. When prompted to authenticate, the user must unlock the authenticator app with their device credential to view the OTP token. There is less risk of interception than with an SMS or email message, but as it runs on a shared use device, there is the possibility that malware could compromise the app. A user account that has been authenticated can be allocated rights and permissions on networks, computers, and data. An access control model describes the principles that govern how users receive rights. Discretionary access control is based on the primacy of the resource owner. In a DAC model, every resource has an owner. The owner creates a file or service, although ownership can be assigned to another user. The owner has full control over the resource, and they can modify its access control list to grant rights to others. DAC is the most flexible model and is currently implemented widely in computer and network security. In file system security, it is the model used by default for most Unix, Linux distributions, and Microsoft Windows. As the most flexible model, it is also the weakest because it makes centralized administration of security policies the most difficult to enforce. It is also the easiest to compromise, as it is vulnerable to insider threats and abuse of compromised accounts. The DAC model exposes information to the threat of compromise via the privileged owner accounts. Mandatory access control is based on security clearance levels. Rather than defining ACLs on resources, each object is given a classification label and each subject is granted a clearance level. In a confidentiality-oriented multilevel system, subjects are permitted to read objects classified at their own clearance level or below. For example, a user with top-secret clearance could read data with top-secret, secret, and confidential classification labels. A user with secret clearance could access secret and confidential levels only. Labeling objects and granting clearance takes place using pre-established rules. The critical point is that these rules are non-discretionary and cannot be changed by any subject account. Role and attribute-based access control use non-discretionary, rules-based permissions assignments with more flexibility than MAC. Role-based access control means that an organization defines its permission requirements in terms of the tasks that an employee or service must be able to perform. Each set of permissions is a role. Each principal is allocated to one or more roles. Under this system, the right to modify the permissions assigned to each role is reserved to a system owner. Therefore, the system is non-discretionary as each principal cannot modify the ACL of a resource, even though they can change the resource in other ways. Principals gain rights implicitly rather than explicitly. The concept of a security group account goes some way toward turning a discretionary system into a role-based one. Rather than assigning rights directly to user accounts, the system owner assigns user accounts to security group accounts. Principals gain rights by being made a member of a security group. A principal can be a member of multiple groups and can therefore receive rights and permissions from several sources. Rule-based access control refers to any sort of access control model where access control policies are determined by system-enforced rules rather than by system users. As such, role-based, attribute-based access control, and MAC are all examples of rule-based access control. Conditional access is an example of rule-based access control. A conditional access system monitors account or device behavior throughout a session. If certain conditions are met, it may suspend the account or may require the user to re-authenticate, perhaps using a two-step verification method. The user account control and pseudo restrictions on privileged accounts are examples of conditional access. The user is prompted for confirmation or authentication when making requests that require elevated privileges. Role-based rights management and attribute-based access control systems can apply a number of criteria to conditional access, including location-based policies. Least privilege means that a principal is granted the minimum possible sufficient rights to complete a task that they are authorized to perform. This mitigates risk if an account should be compromised and fall under the control of a threat actor. Least privilege involves a design phase, where analysis of business workflows determines what roles and permissions are required. While least privilege is a strong design principle, implementing it successfully can be challenging. Where many users, groups, roles, and resources are involved, managing permission assignments and implications is complex and time-consuming. Improperly configured accounts can have two different impacts. On the one hand, setting privileges that are too restrictive creates a large volume of support calls and reduces productivity. On the other hand, granting too many privileges to users weakens the system's security and increases the risk of malware infection and a data breach. Provisioning is the process of setting up a service according to a standard procedure or best practice checklist. The IT department must keep track of all assets under management, and user accounts are a type of asset. User accounts are provisioned for new employees and for temporary access, such as by consultants and contractors. Some businesses may also need to set up customer accounts. Deprovisioning is the process of removing the access rights and permissions allocated to an employee when they leave the company or from a contractor when a project finishes. This involves removing the account from any roles or security groups. The account might be disabled for a period and then deleted or deleted immediately. A user account is defined by a unique security identifier, a name, and a credential. Each account is associated with a profile. The profile can be defined with custom identity attributes describing the user, such as a full name, email address, contact number, department. The profile may support media such as an account picture. As well as attributes, the profile will usually provide a location for storing user-generated data files. The profile can also store per-account settings for software applications. Each account can be assigned permissions over files and other network resources and access policies or privileges over the use and configuration of network hosts. These permissions might be assigned directly to the account or inherited through membership in a security group or role. Access policies determine things like the right to log onto a computer locally or via a remote desktop, install software, change the network configuration. On a Windows Active Directory, network access policies can be configured via group policy objects. GPOs can be used to configure access rights for users, groups, and role accounts. GPOs can be linked to network administrative boundaries and Active Directory, such as sites, domains, and organizational units. Policy-based restrictions can be used to mitigate some risks of account compromise through the theft of credentials. A user or device can have a logical network location, identified by an IP address, subnet, virtual LAN, or organizational unit. This can be used as an account restriction mechanism. For example, a user account may be prevented from logging on locally to servers within a restricted OU. The geographical location of a user or device can be calculated using a geolocation mechanism. IP address can be associated with a map location to varying degrees of accuracy based on information published by the registrant, including name, country, region, and city. The registrant is usually the Internet service provider, so the information you receive will provide an approximate location of a host based on the ISP. If the ISP is one that serves a large or diverse geographical area, it is more difficult to pinpoint the location of the host Internet service providers. Software libraries, such as GeoIP, facilitate querying this data. Location services are methods used by the OS to calculate the device's geographical position. A device with a global positioning system sensor can report a highly accurate location when outdoors. Location services can also triangulate to cell towers, Wi-Fi hotspots, and Bluetooth signals where GPS is not supported. There are 4 main types of time-based policies. A time-of-day restrictions policy establishes authorized login hours for an account. A duration-based login policy establishes the maximum amount of time an account may be logged in for. An impossible travel time, also known as a risky login policy, tracks the location of login events over time. If these do not meet a threshold, the account will be disabled. For example, a user logs into an account from a device in New York City. A couple of hours later, a login attempt is made from Los Angeles, but is refused and an alert is raised because it is not feasible for the user to be in both locations. Standard users have limited privileges, typically with access to run programs and to create and modify files belonging only to their profile. A privileged account is one that can make significant configuration changes to a host, such as installing software or disabling a firewall or other security system. Privileged accounts also have the right to manage network appliances, application servers, and databases. Privileged access management refers to policies, procedures, and technical controls to prevent compromise of privileged accounts. These controls identify and document privileged accounts, giving visibility into their use, and managing the credentials used to access them. One of the most important features of an operating system is the authentication provider, which is the software architecture and code that underpins the mechanism by which the user is authenticated before starting a shell. Knowledge-based authentication relies on cryptographic hashes. A plaintext password is not usually transmitted or stored in a credential database because of the risk of compromise. Instead, the password is stored as a cryptographic hash. When a user enters a password to log in, an authenticator converts what is typed into a hash and transmits that to an authority. The authority compares the submitted hash to the one in the database and authenticates the subject only if they match. Windows authentication involves a complex architecture of components, but the following 3 scenarios are typical. Windows Local Sign-In is the local security authority subsystem service that compares the submitted credential to a hash stored in the Security Accounts Manager database, which is part of the registry. This is also referred to as interactive logon. Windows Network Sign-In can pass the credentials for authentication to an Active Directory domain controller. The preferred system for network authentication is based on Kerberos, but legacy network applications might use NT-LAN Manager authentication. Remote sign-in is used if the user's device is not directly connected to the local network. Authentication can take place over a virtual private network, enterprise Wi-Fi, or web portal. These use protocols to create a secure connection between the client machine, the remote access device, and the authentication server. In Linux, local user account names are stored in /etc/password. When a user logs into a local interactive shell, the password is checked against a hash stored in etc. shadow. Interactive login over a network is typically accomplished using Secure Shell. With SSH, the user can be authenticated using cryptographic keys instead of a password. A directory service stores information about users, computers, security groups, roles, and services. Each object in the directory has a number of attributes. The directory schema describes the types of attributes, what information they contain, and whether they are required or optional. In order for products from different vendors to be interoperable, most directory services are based on the lightweight Directory Access Protocol, which was developed from a standard called X.500. Within an X.500-like directory, a distinguished name is a collection of attributes that define a unique identifier for any given resource. A distinguished name is made up of attribute value pairs, separated by commas. The most specific attribute is listed first, and successive attributes become progressively broader. This most specific attribute is the relative distinguished name, as it uniquely identifies the object within the context of successive attribute values. A single sign-on system allows the user to authenticate in one system and receive authorizations on integrated application servers without having to enter credentials again. Kerberos is a single sign-on network authentication and authorization protocol used on many networks, notably as implemented by Microsoft's Active Directory service. Kerberos was named after the three-headed guard dog of Hades because it consists of three parts. Clients request services from application servers, which both rely on an intermediary, a key distribution center, to vouch for their identity. There are two services that make up a KDC, the authentication service and the ticket granting service. Kerberos can authenticate human users and application services. These are collectively referred to as principals. Using authentication to a Windows domain as an example, the first step in Kerberos SSO is to authenticate with a KDC server implemented as a domain controller. Federation is the notion that a network needs to be accessible to more than just a well-defined group of employees. In business, a company might need to make parts of its network open to partners, suppliers, and customers. The company can manage its employee accounts easily enough. Managing accounts for each supplier or customer internally may be more difficult. Federation means that the company trusts accounts created and managed by a different network. As another example, in the consumer world, a user might want to use both Google Workspace and Twitter. If Google and Twitter establish a federated network for the purpose of authentication and authorization, then the user can log on to Twitter using their Google credentials or vice versa. An on-premises network can use technologies such as LDAP and Kerberos, very often implemented as a Windows Active Directory network, because the administration of accounts and devices can be centralized. When implementing federation, authentication and authorization design comes with more constraints and additional requirements to ensure interoperability between different platforms. Web applications might not support Kerberos, while third-party networks might not support direct federation with Active Directory or LDAP. The design for these cloud networks likely requires the use of other standard protocols or frameworks for interoperability between web applications. OAuth is designed to facilitate sharing of information within a user profile between sites. The user creates a password-protected account at an identity provider. The user can link that identity to an OAuth consumer site without giving the password to the consumer site. A user can grant an OAuth client authorization to access some part of their account. A client in this context is an app or consumer site. The user account is hosted by one or more resource servers. A resource server is called an API server because it hosts the functions that allow OAuth clients to access user attributes. An authorization server processes authorization requests. A single authorization server can manage multiple resource servers equally. The resource and authorization server could be the same server instance. The client app or service must be registered with the authorization server. As part of this process, the client registers a redirect URL, which is the endpoint that will process authorization tokens. Registration also provides the client with an ID and a secret. The ID can be publicly exposed, but the secret must be kept confidential between the client and the authorization server. When the client application requests authorization, the user approves the authorization server to grant the request using an appropriate method. OAuth supports several grant types, or flows, for use in different contexts, such as server-to-server or mobile app-to-server. Depending on the flow type, the client will end up with an access token validated by the authorization server. The client presents the access token to the resource server, which then accepts the request for the resource if the token is valid.
Ransomware, getting those viruses on your PCs that's locking up your PC, and then you have to pay a ransom in order for it to be to get the password to unencrypt the data that they have locked up. I want you guys to understand what steganography is. Steganography is when someone is using pictures of some sort to actually send the data out. So they have a regular picture on their desktop, but they have embedded sensitive information, some type of PII in the picture, and now they send it out past our security controls, and we have no reason and to think something's wrong, because to us it just looks like they used a picture to send out information, well, to send out to an outside source, right? I want to go back up to logic bombs. Remember, logic bombs are um, viruses that are dormant. They lie dormant until a certain time to detonate, and then once they detonate, they actually apply the attack. They apply whatever um, attack that they were designed to do, whatever malware that they were designed to be. That's when it's allowed to spread out to the network. So it's a logic bomb. More than likely, your insider threats are probably going to do stuff like that, where someone may be mad about the company in a case of they didn't get a raise or they didn't move into a position that they wanted, so they become disgruntled, and now they're going to implant a logic bomb to set off after they quit the job, and then now 3 months after they're removed from the business, it sets off a bomb or a virus within the network. Okay, so your insider threat, I kind of touched on that. Those are your people who are already in the company. They already have usernames and passwords, and they are allowed to go to different places on the network. But now, if you don't really keep people happy, sometimes they have a tendency to turn into a threat or someone who can let go of your information without any type of repercussion. So your insider threat is something that every company faces, and that we need to be aware of when it comes to um, how to keep your information in house and keep them from being able to let that information slip out because of they may not be aware of what they're doing, or they may be doing it on purpose. So we have to ride that fine line of how do we actually keep all this stuff in line. Cookies, remember.
Asset management, security architecture resilience, and physical security are crucial concepts that underpin effective cybersecurity operations. Asset management involves identifying, tracking, and safeguarding an organization's assets, ranging from hardware and software to data and intellectual property. By knowing what assets exist, where they are, and their value to the organization, cybersecurity teams can prioritize their efforts to protect the most critical assets from cyber threats. Security architecture resilience refers to the design and implementation of systems and networks in a way that allows them to withstand and recover quickly from disruptions or attacks. This includes redundancy, fail-safe mechanisms, and robust incident response plans. By building resilience into the security architecture, cybersecurity teams ensure that even if a breach occurs, the impact is minimized and normal operations can be restored quickly. Physical security protects personnel, hardware, software, networks, and data from physical actions and events that could cause severe damage or loss to an organization. This includes controls like access badges, CCTV systems, and locks, as well as sensors for intrusion detection. Physical security is a critical aspect of cybersecurity, as a breach in physical security can lead to direct access to systems and data, bypassing other cybersecurity measures. Together, these concepts support cybersecurity operations, help protect against a wide range of problems, and ensure the continuity of operations in the face of disruptive events. An asset management process tracks all the organization's critical systems, components, devices, and other objects of value in an inventory. It also involves collecting and analyzing information about these assets so that personnel can make informed changes or work with assets to achieve business goals. There are many software suites and associated hardware solutions available for tracking and managing assets. An asset management database can store as much or as little information as necessary. Typical data would be type, model, serial number, asset ID, location, user, value, and service information. Asset ownership assignment, accounting, and classification are essential components of a well-structured asset management process, ensuring that organizations effectively manage and protect their resources while maintaining accountability. Assigning asset ownership involves designating specific individuals or teams within the organization as responsible for particular assets to establish a clear chain of accountability for asset security, maintenance, and ongoing management. Asset classification involves organizing assets based on their value, sensitivity, or criticality to the organization. This enables the consistent and repeatable application of required security controls, effective prioritization for maintenance and updates, and appropriate budget allocation. Both processes need periodic reviews to account for changes in asset value, sensitivity, or relevance to business operations. Monitoring asset tracking activities include inventory and enumeration tasks, which involve creating and maintaining a comprehensive list of all assets within the organization, such as hardware, software, data, and network equipment. Regularly updating and verifying the asset inventory helps organizations identify and manage their assets effectively, ensuring they have accurate information about each asset's location, owner, and status. This information is vital for license management, patch deployment, and security incident response. Asset monitoring also involves tracking the performance, security, and usage of assets, allowing organizations to detect potential issues, vulnerabilities, or unauthorized access promptly. Proactive asset monitoring helps mitigate risks, optimize resource utilization, and ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. There are several ways to perform asset enumeration, depending on the size and complexity of the organization and the types of assets involved, and smaller organizations or for specific asset types. Manually creating and maintaining an inventory of assets may be feasible. This process involves physically inspecting assets, such as computers, servers, and network devices, and recording relevant information, such as serial numbers, make and model, and location. Network scanning tools, such as MAP, Nessus, or OpenVAS, can automatically discover and enumerate network devices, including servers, switches, routers, and workstations. These tools can identify open ports, services, and sometimes even the operating systems and applications running on the devices. Asset management software solutions, such as LawnSweeper, ManageEngine, or SolarWinds, can automatically discover, track, and catalog various types of assets, including hardware, software, and licenses. These tools often provide a centralized dashboard for managing the asset inventory, monitoring changes, and generating reports. CMDB is a centralized repository of information related to an organization's IT infrastructure, including assets, configurations, and relationships. Tools like ServiceNow or BMC Remedy can help create and maintain a CMDB, providing a holistic view of the organization's assets and interdependencies. For organizations with a significant number of mobile devices, MDM solutions like Microsoft Intune, VMware Workspace ONE, or MobileIron can help enumerate, manage, and secure smartphones, tablets, and other mobile assets. With organizations increasingly adopting cloud services, cloud-native tools, such as AWS Config or Azure Resource Graph, or third-party solutions like CloudAware or CloudCheckr, can help discover and catalog assets deployed in the cloud. From the perspective of supporting cybersecurity operations, asset acquisition procurement policies are critical in ensuring organizations maintain a robust security posture. Key considerations include selecting hardware and software solutions with strong security features, such as built-in encryption, secure boot mechanisms, and regular updates or patches. It is crucial to work with reputable vendors and manufacturers that prioritize security and provide ongoing support to address potential vulnerabilities in their products. Additionally, organizations should consider procuring solutions that integrate seamlessly with their existing security infrastructure, such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, or security information and event management platforms. This facilitates a more cohesive and effective security strategy. Moreover, organizations should assess the total cost of ownership of the assets, considering the initial purchase price along with the ongoing costs of maintenance, updates, and potential security incidents. Prioritizing cybersecurity during the asset acquisition and procurement process helps organizations build a solid foundation for their security operations, reducing the risk of breaches, enhancing compliance with relevant regulations, and ultimately protecting their critical data and systems. From the perspective of cybersecurity operations, assets describe the critical resources, information, and infrastructure components that must be protected from potential threats and unauthorized access. The term asset encompasses resources such as hardware devices, software applications, data repositories, network components, and more. Asset protection is critical to maintaining an organization's information system's integrity, confidentiality, and availability. Cybersecurity teams are responsible for identifying and prioritizing these assets based on their sensitivity and the potential impact on the organization's core functions if they are lost, stolen, or breached. Actively safeguarding assets minimizes the potential impacts of security breaches and reduces the likelihood of loss or damage. Tangible assets can be identified using a barcode label or radio frequency ID tag attached to the device. An RFID tag is a chip programmed with asset data. When in range of a scanner, the chip activates and signals the scanner. The scanner alerts management software to update the device's location. As well as asset tracking, this allows the management software to track the device's location, making theft more difficult. A standard naming convention makes the environment more consistent for hardware assets and for digital assets such as accounts and virtual machines. The naming strategy should allow administrators to identify the type and function of any particular resource or location at any point in the configuration management database or network directory. Each label should conform to rules for host and DNS names as well as an ID attribute. The location and function of tangible and digital assets can be recorded using attribute tags and fields or DNS name and TXT resource records. Configuration management ensures that each configurable element within an asset inventory has not diverged from its approved configuration. Change control and change management reduce the risk that changes to these components could cause an interruption to the organization's operations. Service assets are things, processes, or people that contribute to delivering an IT service. A configuration item is an asset that requires specific management procedures to be used to deliver the service. Each CI must be labeled, ideally using a standard naming convention. CIs are defined by their attributes and relationships stored in a configuration management database. A baseline configuration is a list of settings that an asset, such as a server or application, must adhere to. Security baselines describe the minimum set of security configuration settings a device or software must maintain to be considered adequately protected. A configuration management system describes the tools and databases used to collect, store, manage, update, and report information about CIs. A small network might capture this information in spreadsheets and diagrams, whereas a large organization may invest in dedicated applications designed for enterprise environments. Diagrams are the best way to capture the complex relationships between network elements. Diagrams illustrate the use of CIs in business workflows, logical and physical network topologies, and network rack layouts. Backups play an essential role in asset protection by ensuring the availability and integrity of an organization's critical data and systems. By creating copies of important information and storing them securely in separate locations, backups are a safety net in case of hardware failure, data corruption, or cyber attacks such as ransomware. Regularly testing and verifying backup data is crucial to ensuring the reliability of the recovery process. In an enterprise setting, simple backup techniques often prove insufficient to address large organizations' unique challenges and requirements. Scalability becomes a critical concern when vast amounts of data need to be managed efficiently. Simple backup methods may struggle to accommodate growth in data size and complexity. Performance issues caused by simple backup techniques can disrupt business operations because they slow down applications while running and typically have lengthy recovery times. Additionally, enterprises demand greater granularity and customization to target specific applications, databases, or data subsets, which simple techniques often fail to provide. Compliance and security requirements necessitate advanced features such as data encryption, access control, and audit trails that simplistic approaches typically lack. Moreover, robust disaster recovery plans and centralized management are essential components of an enterprise backup strategy. Simple backup techniques might not support advanced features like off-site replication, automated failover, or streamlined management of the diverse systems and geographic locations that comprise a modern organization's information technology environment. Data deduplication describes a data compression technique that optimizes storage space by identifying and eliminating redundant data. It works by analyzing data blocks within a dataset and comparing them to find identical blocks. Instead of storing multiple copies of the same data, deduplication stores a single copy and creates references or pointers to that copy for all other instances. Deduplication can be performed at different levels, such as file level, block level, or byte level. Deduplication significantly minimizes storage requirements and improves data transfer efficiency, particularly in backup and data replication processes, by reducing the amount of duplicate data stored. Many dynamics influence data backup frequency requirements, including data volatility, regulatory requirements, system performance, architecture capabilities, and operational needs. Organizations with highly dynamic data or stringent regulatory mandates may opt for more frequent backups to minimize the risk of data loss and ensure compliance. Conversely, businesses with relatively stable data or less stringent regulatory oversight might choose less frequent backups, balancing data protection, data backup costs, and maintenance overhead. Ultimately, the optimal backup frequency is determined by carefully assessing an organization's regulatory requirements, unique needs, risk tolerance, and resources. The need for on-site and off-site backups must be balanced, as they are crucial in securing critical data and ensuring business continuity. On-site backups involve storing data locally on devices such as hard drives or tapes to provide rapid access and recovery in case of data loss, corruption, or system failures. On the other hand, off-site backups involve transferring data to a remote location to ensure protection against natural disasters, theft, and other physical threats to local infrastructure, as well as catastrophic system loss that can result from ransomware infection, for example. Ransomware poses a significant threat to businesses and organizations by encrypting vital data and demanding a ransom for its release. In many cases, ransomware attacks also target backup infrastructure, hindering recovery efforts and further exacerbating the attack's impact. Perpetrators often employ advanced techniques to infiltrate and compromise both primary and backup systems, rendering them useless when needed. Organizations can implement several strategies to defend against this risk, such as maintaining air-gapped backups physically disconnected from the network, thereby actively preventing ransomware from accessing and encrypting them. Critical recovery validation techniques play a vital role in ensuring the effectiveness and reliability of backup strategies. Organizations can identify potential issues and weaknesses in their data recovery processes by testing backups and making necessary improvements. One common technique is the full recovery test, which involves restoring an entire system from a backup to a separate environment and verifying the fully functional recovered system. This method helps ensure that all critical components, such as operating systems, applications, and data, can be restored and will function as expected. Another approach is the partial recovery test, where selected files, folders, or databases are restored to validate the integrity and consistency of specific data subsets. Organizations can perform regular backup audits, checking the backup logs, schedules, and configurations to ensure backups are created and maintained as intended and required. Furthermore, simulating disaster recovery scenarios, such as hardware failures or ransomware attacks, provides valuable insights into an organization's preparedness and resilience. Recovery validation strategies are essential because backups can complete with 100% success but mask issues until the backup set is used for recovery. Additionally, many organizations are unaware of the time required to perform a recovery, as recovery times are often far longer than assumed. Snapshots play a vital role in data protection and recovery, capturing the state of a system at a specific point in time. Virtual machine, file system, and storage area network snapshots are three different types, each targeting a particular level of the storage hierarchy. VM snapshots, such as those created in VMware vSphere or Microsoft Hyper-V, capture the state of a virtual machine, including its memory, storage, and configuration settings. This allows administrators to roll back the VM to a previous state in case of failures, data corruption, or during software testing. File system snapshots, like those provided by ZFS or BTRFS, capture the state of a file system at a given moment, enabling users to recover accidentally deleted files or restore previous versions of files in case of data corruption. SAN snapshots are taken at the block-level storage layer within a storage area network. Examples include snapshots in NetApp or Dell EMC storage systems, which capture the state of the entire storage volume, allowing for rapid recovery of large datasets and applications. By utilizing VM, file system, and SAN snapshots, organizations can enhance their data protection and recovery strategies, ensuring the availability and integrity of their data across different storage layers and systems. Replication and journaling are data protection methods that ensure data availability and integrity by maintaining multiple copies and tracking changes to data. Replication involves creating and maintaining exact copies of data on different storage systems or locations. Organizations can safeguard against data loss due to hardware failures, human errors, or malicious attacks by having redundant copies of the data. In the event of a failure, the replicated data can be utilized to restore the system to its original state. A practical example of replication is database mirroring, where an organization maintains primary and secondary mirrored databases. Any changes made to the primary database are automatically replicated to the secondary database, ensuring data consistency and availability if the primary database encounters any issues. On the other hand, journaling records changes to data in a separate, dedicated log known as a journal. Organizations can track and monitor data modifications and revert to previous states if necessary. Journaling is beneficial for data recovery in system crashes. It enables the system to identify and undo any incomplete transactions that might have caused inconsistencies or replay transactions that occurred after the full system backup was completed. This provides greater granularity for restores and greatly minimizes data loss. A practical example of journaling is using file system journaling, such as the journaled file system or the new technology file system, with journaling enabled. These file systems maintain a record of all changes made to files, allowing for data recovery and consistency checks after unexpected system shutdowns or crashes. Remote journaling, SAN replication, and VM replication are advanced data protection methods that maintain data availability and integrity across multiple locations and systems. Remote journaling creates and maintains a journal of data changes at a separate, remote location, allowing for data recovery and ensuring business continuity in case of local failures, natural disasters, or malicious attacks. SAN replication duplicates data from one SAN to another in real time or near real time, providing redundancy and protection against hardware failures, human errors, or data corruption. This technique involves synchronous replication, which guarantees data consistency, and asynchronous replication, which is more cost-effective but slightly less stringent in consistency. Meanwhile, VM replication creates and maintains an up-to-date copy of a virtual machine on a separate host or location, ensuring that a secondary VM can quickly take over the workload in the event of a primary VM failure or corruption. By implementing these methods, organizations can bolster their data protection strategies, safeguarding against various risks and ensuring the availability and integrity of their critical data and systems. Encryption of backups is essential for various reasons, primarily data security, privacy, and compliance. By encrypting backups, organizations add an extra layer of protection against unauthorized access or theft, ensuring that sensitive data remains unreadable without the appropriate decryption key. This is particularly crucial for businesses dealing with sensitive customer data, intellectual property, or trade secrets, as unauthorized access can lead to severe reputational damage, financial loss, or legal consequences. Copies of sensitive data stored in backup sets are often overlooked, so many industries and jurisdictions have regulations that mandate the protection of sensitive data stored in backups. Encrypting backups helps organizations meet these regulatory requirements and avoid fines, penalties, or legal actions resulting from noncompliance. Several common circumstances may necessitate data destruction within an organization to ensure security, compliance, and proper management of resources. At the end of a data retention period, organizations must destroy data in accordance with internal policies and external regulations while optimizing storage resources. Legal and regulatory compliance, such as adhering to the General Data Protection Regulation or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, also requires the deletion or destruction of specific data when it is no longer needed or if requested by the data subject. Periodically destroying obsolete or outdated data can help maintain efficient storage utilization and reduce the risk of data breaches. Additionally, when decommissioning storage devices or systems, ensure that any stored data is destroyed before disposal or repurposing to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information. It is critical to use methods appropriate for the type of storage media being decommissioned. For hard disk drives, data wiping methods such as overwriting with zeros or multiple patterns can be effective. This process can include a single pass of zeros or more complex patterns involving multiple passes to thwart attempts at data recovery. For solid-state drives, traditional overwriting methods are less effective due to wear leveling and bad block management. Instead, use commands such as the ATA Secure Erase, which are designed to handle the specific challenges of SSD technology by instructing the drive's firmware to internally sanitize all stored data, including that within inaccessible marked as bad memory cells. Asset disposal decommissioning concepts focus on the secure and compliant handling of data and storage devices at the end of their lifecycle or when they are no longer needed. Some important concepts include the following. Sanitization refers to the process of removing sensitive information from storage media to prevent unauthorized access or data breaches. This process uses specialized techniques, such as data wiping, degaussing, or encryption, to ensure that the data becomes irretrievable. Sanitization is particularly important when repurposing or donating storage devices, as it helps protect the organization's sensitive information and maintains compliance with data protection regulations. Destruction involves the physical or electronic elimination of information stored on media, rendering it inaccessible and irrecoverable. Physical destruction methods include shredding, crushing, or incinerating storage devices, while electronic destruction involves overwriting data multiple times or using degaussing techniques to eliminate magnetic fields on storage media. Destruction is a crucial step in the decommissioning process and ensures that sensitive data cannot be retrieved or misused after the disposal of storage devices. Certification refers to the documentation and verification of the data sanitization or destruction process. This often involves obtaining a certificate of destruction or sanitization from a reputable third-party provider, attesting that the data has been securely removed or destroyed in accordance with industry standards and regulations. Certification helps organizations maintain compliance with data protection requirements, provides evidence of due diligence, and reduces the risk of legal liabilities. Certifying data destruction without third-party involvement can be challenging, as the latter provides an impartial evaluation. Continuity of operations refers to the process of ensuring that an organization can maintain or quickly resume its critical functions in the event of a disruption, disaster, or crisis. COOP concepts and strategies aim to minimize downtime, protect essential resources, and maintain business resilience. Key elements of a COOP plan include identifying critical business functions, establishing priorities, and determining the resources needed to support these functions. Strategies often involve creating redundancy for IT systems and data, such as implementing off-site backups, failover systems, and disaster recovery solutions. Additionally, organizations may consider alternative work arrangements, such as remote work or co-location arrangements, to maintain operations during a crisis. Developing clear communication and decision-making protocols ensures that employees understand their roles and responsibilities during an emergency. Regular testing and updating of continuity of operations plans are crucial to ensure the organization can maintain essential functions during and after disruptive events. Realistic scenarios designed to simulate various disruptions, such as natural disasters, cyber attacks, or pandemics, must be used to assess the plan's effectiveness. Testing methods often include tabletop exercises, isolated functional tests, or full-scale drills. Each approach provides different levels of assurance and must therefore use pre-established evaluation criteria for measuring performance. In essence, COOP strategies focus on proactively preparing for disruptions, ensuring that organizations can continue to deliver essential services and minimize the impact of unforeseen events on their operations. Backups play a critical role in the continuity of operations plans by safeguarding against data loss and restoring systems and data in the event of disruptions. Regular testing verifies the integrity and effectiveness of backups. Testing backups helps ensure the backup process functions correctly by simulating various scenarios and allows organizations to identify any issues or gaps in the backup and recovery process. Testing backups validates the recoverability of critical systems and data, reducing the risk of data loss and minimizing downtime associated with disruptive events. Additionally, testing backups allows organizations to assess their recovery plans, evaluate the speed and efficiency of their backup systems, and ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. Inadequate backup processes can lead to extended downtime, critical data loss, financial losses, reputation damage, and non-compliance. Continuity of operations and business continuity are closely related concepts that both focus on maintaining the ongoing functioning of an organization during and after a disruption, disaster, or crisis. However, they differ slightly in terms of their scope and primary objectives. Continuity of operations primarily addresses the continuity of critical functions and services within an organization during an emergency or disaster. It often involves the development and implementation of strategies to maintain or restore essential operations, such as redundant IT systems, off-site backups, and disaster recovery solutions. COOP usually encompasses a shorter time frame, focusing on the immediate response to a disruption and the steps taken to resume critical functions as quickly as possible. Business continuity, on the other hand, takes a broader approach, considering not only the continuity of critical functions but also the overall resilience and recovery of the entire organization. Business continuity planning includes the assessment of risks, the development of strategies to mitigate those risks, and the creation of plans to maintain or restore business operations in the face of various threats. This may involve addressing supply chain management, employee safety and communication, legal and regulatory compliance, and reputation management. Business continuity aims to ensure the long-term viability of an organization following a disruption, encompassing both immediate response and ongoing recovery efforts. Continuity of operations is a component of the broader business continuity concept. Both are focused on maintaining the ongoing functioning of an organization during disruptions, but COOP is primarily concerned with the immediate response and restoration of critical functions, while business continuity encompasses a more comprehensive approach to ensure the overall resilience and recovery of the entire organization. Capacity planning is a critical process in which organizations assess their current and future resource requirements to ensure they can efficiently meet their business objectives. This process involves evaluating and forecasting the necessary resources in terms of people, technology, and infrastructure to support anticipated growth, changes in demand, or other factors that may impact operations. For people, capacity planning considers the number of employees, their skill sets, and the potential need for additional training or hiring to meet future demands. This may involve evaluating workforce productivity, analyzing staffing levels, and identifying potential skills gaps. In terms of technology, capacity planning encompasses the assessment of hardware, software, and network resources required to support business operations, taking into account factors such as performance, scalability, and reliability. Organizations must ensure they have the right technology resources in place to handle increasing workloads and support new applications or services. When it comes to infrastructure, capacity planning involves evaluating physical facilities, such as data centers and office spaces, to determine whether they can accommodate projected growth and maintain business continuity. This may include considerations for power, cooling, and connectivity, as well as planning for potential expansion or relocation. Organizations use various capacity planning methods, including trend analysis, simulation modeling, and benchmarking, to help forecast their needs. Trend analysis examines historical data to identify patterns and trends in resource usage, demand, and performance. Organizations can forecast future resource requirements by understanding past patterns. This type of analysis can help identify potential bottlenecks or other areas that require attention. Simulation modeling leverages computer-based models to simulate real-world scenarios. Organizations can assess the impact of changes in demand, different resource allocation strategies, or system configurations to make informed decisions and optimize resource allocation to meet anticipated needs. Benchmarking requires a comparison of an organization's performance metrics against industry standards or best practices. Benchmarking provides a comparatively simple way to identify areas for improvement and establish performance targets. Ultimately, effective capacity planning allows organizations to optimize resource allocation, reduce costs, and minimize the risk of downtime or performance issues, ensuring they can continue to meet their business goals and maintain a competitive edge. People risks associated with capacity planning may include insufficient staffing or skills gaps, leading to inadequate resource allocation or ineffective utilization. Lack of cross-training or succession planning can create dependency on specific individuals, increasing vulnerability to disruptions. Additionally, resistance to change, lack of employee engagement, or ineffective communication can hinder successful security operations. Cross-training requires employees to develop skills and knowledge outside their primary roles to mitigate the risk of relying heavily on specific individuals or teams. By cross-training employees, organizations can ensure that multiple individuals can perform critical tasks, reducing the dependence on a single employee or team. Cross-training promotes flexibility, resilience, and continuity within the workforce. Remote work plans outline strategies for employees to work effectively outside the traditional office environment. Remote work plans define communication channels, technology requirements, and expectations for remote work arrangements. Established remote work plans allow organizations to seamlessly transition to remote operations, ensuring business continuity and minimizing the impact of disruptions. Alternative reporting structures describe backup or temporary reporting relationships to reduce the risk associated with single points of failure in management or decision-making. Organizations can maintain operations and decision-making even if key personnel are unavailable by identifying interim individuals or teams. Effective communication is paramount in reducing risk during disruptive events. Clear and timely communication channels ensure that employees, stakeholders, and customers receive accurate information, instructions, and updates. Clear communication helps manage expectations, reduce confusion, and facilitate coordinated responses. Communication fosters trust, promotes employee engagement, and ensures everyone is aligned with the organization's response plans. Additionally, communication plays a vital role in disseminating information about alternative work arrangements, changes in reporting structures, and other critical updates during a disruptive event. High availability is crucial in IT infrastructure, ensuring systems remain operational and accessible with minimal downtime. It involves designing and implementing hardware components, servers, networking, data centers, and physical locations for fault tolerance and redundancy. In a high availability setup, redundant hardware components, such as power supplies, hard drives, and network interfaces, reduce the risk of failure by allowing the system to continue functioning if one component fails. Servers are often deployed in clusters or paired configurations, which allows automatic failover from a primary server to a secondary server in case of an issue. Networking components, including switches, routers, and load balancers, are also designed with redundancy in mind to maintain seamless connectivity. As the backbone of high-availability infrastructure, data centers employ redundant power sources, cooling systems, and backup generators to ensure continuous operation. Additionally, organizations may deploy data centers in geographically diverse locations to mitigate the impact of natural disasters or other large-scale events, further enhancing high availability and disaster recovery capabilities. High availability also means that a system can cope with rapid growth in demand. These properties are referred to as scalability and elasticity. Scalability is the capacity to increase resources to meet demand within similar cost ratios. This means that if service demand doubles, costs do not more than double. There are two types of scalability. To scale out is to add more resources in parallel with existing resources. To scale up is to increase the power of existing resources. Elasticity refers to the system's ability to handle these changes on demand in real time. A system with high elasticity will not experience a loss of service or performance if demand suddenly increases rapidly. A system that can experience failures and continue to provide the same level of service is said to be fault-tolerant. Fault tolerance is often achieved by provisioning redundancy for critical components and single points of failure. A redundant component is one that is not essential to the normal function of a system, but that allows the system to recover from the failure of another component. Enterprise environments often provision resiliency at the site level. An alternate processing or recovery site is a location that can provide the same level of service. An alternate processing site might always be available and in use, while a recovery site might take longer to set up or only be used in an emergency. Operations are designed to fail over to the new site until the previous site can be brought back online. Failover is a technique that ensures a redundant component, device, application, or site can quickly and efficiently take over the functionality of an asset that has failed. For example, load balancers provide failover in the event that one or more servers or sites behind the load balancer are down or are taking too long to respond. Once the load balancer detects this, it will redirect inbound traffic to an alternate processing server or site. Thus, redundant servers in the load balancer pool ensure there is no or minimal interruption of service. Site resiliency is described as hot, warm, or cold. A hot site can fail over almost immediately. It generally means the site is within the organization's ownership and ready to deploy. For example, a hot site could consist of a building with operational computer equipment kept updated with a live data set. A warm site could be similar, but with the requirement that the latest data set needs to be loaded. A cold site takes longer to set up. A cold site may be an empty building with a lease agreement in place to install whatever equipment is required when necessary. Providing redundancy on this scale is generally very complicated and expensive. Another issue is that creating duplicate sites and data also doubles the complexity of securing the resources. The same security procedures must apply to redundant sites, spare systems, and backup data as apply to the main copy. Geographic dispersion refers to the distribution of recovery sites across different geographic locations for disaster recovery purposes. The concept aims to ensure that recovery sites are located far enough apart to minimize the impact of regional disasters, such as natural calamities or localized incidents. By strategically dispersing recovery sites, organizations can ensure the resilience of their recovery strategies and reduce the risk of a single catastrophic event affecting all business operations. Several factors drive organizations to use cloud services for data center or site redundancy. Cost efficiency plays a significant role, as cloud providers offer more affordable redundancy and backup options due to their economies of scale. The scalability of cloud services allows businesses to incorporate redundant capabilities without over-provisioning resources. For example, geographic diversity provided by cloud providers helps protect against regional outages or disasters, but incorporating this type of redundancy for a private organization would be cost-prohibitive and unwarranted. Faster deployment of capabilities when using cloud platforms enables organizations to set up and deploy redundant systems quickly, far more rapidly than could be done when building infrastructure from scratch. Simplified management is another critical factor, with cloud providers offering tools and services that reduce the complexity of managing redundant infrastructure. Improved security and compliance are also important considerations, as cloud providers invest heavily in these areas, helping organizations meet data protection and redundancy regulatory requirements. Testing high availability, load balancing, and failover technologies is critical and is designed to assess the ability to remain operational during heavy workloads, component failures, or scheduled maintenance. Load testing incorporates specialized software tools to validate a system's performance under expected or peak loads and identify bottlenecks or scalability issues. Failover testing focuses on validating failover processes to ensure a seamless transition between primary and secondary infrastructure. Testing monitoring systems validate effective detection and response to failures and performance issues. Robust testing practices allow organizations to ensure that high availability, load balancing, and failover technologies effectively fulfill their purpose to minimize unexpected outages and maximize performance. Where load balancing distributes traffic between independent processing nodes, clustering allows multiple redundant processing nodes that share data with one another to accept connections. This provides redundancy. If one of the nodes in the cluster stops working, connections can fail over to a working node. To clients, the cluster appears to be a single server. A load balancer distributes client requests across available server nodes in a farm or pool and is generally associated with managing web traffic, whereas clusters are used to provide redundancy and high availability for systems such as databases, file servers, and others. Clustering is also very commonly used to provision fault-tolerant application services. If an application server suffers a fault in the middle of a session, the session state data will be lost. Application clustering allows servers in the cluster to communicate session information to one another. For example, if a user logs in on one instance, the next session can start on another instance, and the new server can access the cookies or other information used to establish the login. Platform diversity is a concept in cybersecurity that refers to using multiple technologies, operating systems, and hardware or software components within an organization's infrastructure. By incorporating a variety of platforms, businesses can reduce the risk of a single vulnerability or attack affecting their entire infrastructure. This approach is important for cybersecurity operations, as it helps create a more resilient environment that can better withstand cyber threats. When an organization relies on a single technology or platform, an attacker who discovers a vulnerability can potentially compromise the entire system. However, with platform diversity, even if one component is compromised, other parts of the system remain secure, limiting the potential damage. Furthermore, a diverse technology landscape can make it more challenging for threat actors to navigate, as they must be familiar with multiple platforms and exploit techniques. In this way, platform diversity deters potential attackers and contributes to the overall robustness of an organization's cybersecurity posture. Defense in Depth is a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy that emphasizes the implementation of multiple layers of protection to safeguard an organization's information and infrastructure. This approach is based on the principle that no single security measure can completely protect against all threats. By deploying a variety of defenses at different levels, organizations can create a more resilient security posture that can withstand a wide range of attacks. For example, a defense-in-depth strategy might include perimeter security measures such as firewalls and intrusion detection systems to protect against external threats. Organizations can implement segmentation, secure access controls, and traffic monitoring at the network level to prevent unauthorized access and contain potential breaches. Endpoint security solutions, such as antivirus software and device hardening, help protect individual devices, while regular patch management ensures software vulnerabilities are addressed promptly. Additionally, implementing strong user authentication methods, such as multi-factor authentication, can further secure access to sensitive data and systems. Finally, employee security awareness training and incident response planning are essential components of a defense in-depth strategy, helping to minimize human error and ensure a rapid response to security incidents. Vendor diversity is essential for several reasons, offering benefits not only in terms of cybersecurity but also in business resilience, innovation, and competition. Relying on a single vendor for all software and hardware solutions can create a single point of failure. The entire infrastructure may be at risk if a vulnerability is discovered in that vendor's products. Vendor diversity introduces multiple technologies, reducing the impact of a single vulnerability and making it more difficult for attackers to exploit the entire system. Business resilience. Vendor diversity mitigates the risk associated with vendor lock-in and ensures that an organization's operations are not solely reliant on one vendor's products or services. If a vendor stops doing business, goes bankrupt, or experiences a significant disruption, having alternatives helps maintain business continuity. Diverse vendors bring different perspectives, ideas, and technologies. Leveraging solutions from multiple vendors can lead to a more innovative and agile IT infrastructure, better positioning an organization to adapt to emerging trends and technologies. Vendor diversity promotes healthy competition in the market, which can lead to better pricing, improved product features, and higher quality customer support. By engaging multiple vendors, organizations can encourage continuous improvement and obtain better value for their investments. Different vendors offer unique solutions that cater to specific needs, and having a diverse vendor ecosystem allows organizations to choose the best fit for their requirements. This flexibility can result in a more tailored and effective IT infrastructure. Vendor diversity helps spread the risk associated with potential product or service failures, security breaches, and other issues. Organizations can better manage and mitigate risks by not trusting a single solution provider or supplier. In some industries, regulations or industry standards may require organizations to maintain vendor diversity to ensure compliance and reduce the risk of supply chain disruptions or security breaches. Deception and disruption technologies are cybersecurity resilience tools and techniques to increase the cost of attack planning for the threat actor. Honeypots, honeynets, honeyfiles, and honey tokens are all cybersecurity tools used to detect and defend against attacks. Honeypots are decoy systems that mimic real systems and applications. They are designed to allow security teams to monitor attacker activity and gather information about their tactics and tools. Honeynets are a network of interconnected honeypots that simulate an entire network, providing a more extensive and realistic environment for attackers to engage with. Honeyfiles are fake files that appear to contain sensitive information, used to detect attempts to access and steal data. Honey tokens are false credentials, login credentials, or other data types used to distract attackers, trigger alerts, and provide insight into attacker activity. By deploying these tools, organizations can detect and monitor attacks, gather intelligence about attackers and their methods, and proactively defend against future attacks. These tools can also provide an additional layer of defense by diverting attackers' attention away from real systems and applications, reducing the risk of successful attacks. Physical security is critical to cybersecurity operations because it provides the first line of defense against physical access to an organization's critical assets. Cybersecurity is about securing digital assets and protecting the physical components that house those assets, such as servers, data centers, and other critical infrastructure. Practical examples of physical security measures in cybersecurity operations include access control mechanisms such as biometric scanners, smart cards, key fobs, and surveillance systems, including video cameras, motion sensors, and alarms. Additionally, backup power, redundant cooling, and fire suppression systems are critical components of physical security in data centers. To secure a gateway, it must be fitted with a lock. A secure gateway will normally be self-closing and self-locking rather than dependent on the user to close and lock it. Lock types can be categorized as follows. Physical are conventional locks that prevent the door handle from being operated without using a key. More expensive types offer greater resistance against lock picking. Electronic are locks, rather than a key, that operate by entering a pin on an electronic keypad. This type of lock is also referred to as cipher, combination, or keyless. A smart lock may be opened using a magnetic swipe card or feature a proximity reader to detect the presence of a physical token, such as a wireless key fob or smart card. An access control vestibule, also known as a mantrap, is a security measure that regulates entry to a secure area. It involves two doors or gates that interlock and permit only one individual to pass through at a time. The first door opens after the person is granted access via an access control system, such as a card reader or biometric scanner. Once the person enters the vestibule, the first door shuts. The second door opens only when the first door is firmly shut. This guarantees only one person can enter or exit at a time, preventing unauthorized access or tailgating. Access control vestibules are frequently used in high-security settings like data centers, government buildings, and financial institutions to offer an additional layer of physical security control. They effectively deter unauthorized access to secure areas and safeguard sensitive assets against potential physical attacks. Alarms play a vital role in physical security by supplementing other security controls. Alarms alert security personnel and building occupants of potential threats or breaches. They are both detective and deterrent controls, notifying of trouble and discouraging unauthorized access and criminal activity. Alarms are often integrated with other physical security controls, such as access control systems, surveillance cameras, or motion sensors, to enhance their effectiveness. The following list describes several common types of alarms. Circuit uses a circuit-based alarm that sounds when the circuit is opened or closed, depending on the type of alarm. For example, this could be a door or window opening or by a fence being cut. A closed-circuit alarm is more secure because it cannot be defeated by cutting the circuit like an open-circuit alarm. Motion detection uses a motion-based alarm linked to a detector that is triggered by any movement within an area such as a room. The sensors in these detectors are either microwave radio reflection or passive infrared, which detect moving heat sources. Noise detection uses an alarm triggered by sounds picked up by a microphone. Modern AI-backed analysis and identification of specific types of sound can render this type of system less prone to false positives. Proximity uses radio frequency ID tags and readers to track the movement of tagged objects within an area. This allows an alarm system to detect whether someone is trying to remove equipment. Duress uses an alarm triggered manually by staff if they come under threat. There are many ways of implementing this type of alarm, including wireless pendants, concealed sensors or triggers, and DECT handsets or smartphones. Some electronic entry locks can also be programmed with a duress code different from the ordinary access code. This will open the gateway but also alert security personnel that the lock has been operated under duress. Circuit-based alarms are suited for use at the perimeter and on windows and doors. These may register when a gateway is opened without using the lock mechanism properly or when a gateway is held open for longer than a defined period. Motion detectors are useful for controlling access to spaces not normally used. Duress alarms are useful for exposed staff in public areas. An alarm might simply sound like an alert or be linked to a monitoring system. Many alarms are linked directly to local law enforcement or third-party security companies. A silent alarm alerts security personnel rather than sounding an audible alarm. Sensors are critical in implementing physical security measures, providing proactive detection and alerting capabilities against potential security breaches. These devices can employ various technologies, including infrared, pressure, microwave, and ultrasonic systems, each with unique advantages and suitable applications. Infrared sensors are commonly used in motion detection systems. They detect changes in heat patterns caused by moving objects, such as a human intruder. These are often used in residential and commercial security systems, triggering alarms or activating security lights when detecting motion. Pressure sensors are typically installed inside floors or mats and are activated by weight. They can be used in high-security areas to detect unauthorized access or even in retail environments to count foot traffic. Microwave sensors emit microwave pulses and measure the reflection off a moving object. They are often combined with infrared detectors and dual-technology motion sensors. These sensors are less likely to trigger false alarms, as the infrared and microwave sensors must be tripped simultaneously to trigger an alarm. These can be useful in securing large outdoor areas like parking lots or fenced areas. Ultrasonic sensors emit sound waves at frequencies above the range of human hearing and measure the time it takes for the waves to return after hitting an object. They are often used in automated lighting systems to switch lights on when someone enters a room and switch them off again when the room is empty.
Bluetooth attacks, being able to have Bluetooth enabled on your wireless device, and then someone able to actually get close enough to you to actually steal information away from you. So while we look at Bluetooth devices as being very convenient for us, we got our AirPods in, or we got our headphones on, or we connected to a car. Hackers can take those two things, or those that convenience that we have, and then use it to their advantages by actually sending you information that you don't really want. That's what you call blue snarfing here, where a theft. I'm sorry, blue jacking, where we're sending information to someone that we really don't want. Um, that's blue jacking, and then blue snarfing is when we take information away from someone via Bluetooth. So we're actually able to connect to them and then actually send contacts over, pictures over, videos, anything across the network, from your device to my device as being the hacker. We used to see this a lot in the day back in the day when we had PDAs. PDAs came out, and they were kind of like the first smart device that was actually handheld. So it was as big as your iPhone, but it was supposed to be more smarter than your normal Nokia phone at the time. Um, where cell phones back in the early 2000s, just it had enough information to have your phone number, contacts, and maybe one game which was pixelated to Snake or some other really simple game. It really didn't do the internet type capabilities that your smart devices had now. So we had this thing called a PDA, which was kind of like a small version of a laptop, which was, like I said, about as big as a iPhone Pro now, any kind of Pro Max that you may have. So it could do several things like go on the internet, keep more functions than your regular cell phone would have. The problem was is that when it came to having Bluetooth on those type of devices, you can actually send files back and forth. And before they actually got smart to the fact of actually putting security on your Bluetooth or telling you to turn your Bluetooth off, a lot of people will connect to these PDAs and then pull important information off. Now, you didn't normally see a regular person with a PDA, but if you would go to a Walmart or a Kmart, for example, you can see those stores actually having those PDAs in hand and actually doing inventory of stock products with their PDAs, right? So we can actually take some of that information off that PDA and then transfer it to ours if we're in the same vicinity. Um, so nowadays you don't necessarily see that happening via Bluetooth. What you see is an attack where you have near field communications, NFC type of attacks. And I don't know if you guys have seen the commercials where they want you to buy this type of metal that goes into your wallet, and that causes a friction in the radio waves between your um, your credit cards that actually use NFC technology in order for you to tap to pay, or your phone that actually, whenever you don't have your debit card on you, you can tap your smartwatch, or you can tap your phone to the actual swiper, and then it actually transfers your bank account information via the radio waves. Well, a hacker can come and sit beside you in a let's say a park, right? Let's say if they at Dillon Park and they sit beside you on the bench, and then while they're on their phone, they can actually transfer that information off of your wallet from your cards onto their actual device, and then steal that information away from you. So while NFC is cool and it's more convenient, again, um, hackers are not necessarily looking for a conveniency, but they're looking for the convenience in actually taking advantage of you. So I don't know if you guys seen those type of commercials where you can buy those type of metal protectors to protect or kind of disrupt those radio waves that allow you to transfer data back and forth. But what they're doing is disrupting the NFC fields in order for you to tap to pay, right? So just keep those things in mind. Do you really need it? Um, it's convenient. I'm not gonna lie, it is convenient to not really. If you got your hands filled and you just need to tap your watch real quick, I think that's nice to have. But just keep in mind that if you're not using that technology, don't open yourself to an attacker actually getting connected um, to you and actually stealing some information off you. Hey, this is an overview of technical devices that we use on a day-to-day basis. So in this class, I'm going to go over PCs, routers, switches, as well as servers, and kind of break things down and try to make sense of all the terminology that we have been using over the past couple of weeks. So I'm not trying to be long with this video. I'm trying to make it hit the main points, and that's basically covering these topics: the motherboard, CPU, memory, such as RAM, your hard drive, the operating systems, what are servers, um, kind of dive into IP addresses and the ports that servers and computers use, as well as we'll finish up with the directories. So what is your PC? Your computer is a device that receives information and carries out commands. The way it does that is by having what we call a motherboard installed within it. So either you have a laptop or you have a desktop, either one still has this green circuitry board here that you see on the slide, and that's called your motherboard. And that's where all the processing happens and all the inner workings take place. So on the motherboard, we have what we call the CPU. The CPU is called the central processing unit, and think of this as the brains of the computer. The computer, the CPU will take in information, and it'll either dish out information or it'll compute any kind of commands that it receives. Okay. In the conjunction of that, you have what we call memory. More specifically, is RAM. So that's random access memory. With RAM, is more of a short-term place that the CPU can make the decisions of what commands it needs to take out. So it's a short-term memory bank. It just uses the RAM for the time period that is actually on. So with that being said, you can't store files here. So whenever you make kind of like a Word document, it's not going to be stored in your RAM. It'll be stored elsewhere. And we'll get to that in a minute. But your RAM is going to be there for short-term memory only. And whenever the power is cut from your PC, your RAM is cleared, it's cached out. So just keep that in mind. With longer storage of things that you want to be able to save even if power goes out, that's where we have our hard drive come into place. So these are where you're going to be storing large files, data that's sitting on your hard drive. That's why you want more of a hard drive. You want your hard drive to be a bigger space to actually fill up and actually store those files there. So now that we know that we have a CPU and we have a motherboard, we have the brains of our PC, we need to understand how does our PC communicate with the user? How does it communicate with you? And to know how a computer communicates with each other is by seeing the picture that's laid out here on this slide. So that is what you call binary bits, and it's basically just ones and zeros. 0 is equivalent to being off, and a 1 is equivalent to being